Logos features a multitude of different Bible translations, but there is one that currently stands above the rest in regards to its functionality with Logos Bible software. The ESV translation is the Bible that Logos has started to use for most of the features that separate Logos from other Bible software. In the ESV, Logos has tagged each Greek and Hebrew word that goes behind the English text and linked and organized them with many resources that help Bible scholars to work more efficiently. Today, we will create our first visual filter, look at the basics of the ESV Bible, and look at the basics of the inline interlinear function in Logos. To start, we are going to create a visual filter. Visual filters in Logos utilize the tagging that has been done in the Bible resources of Logos in order to help us better examine the text. To create a visual filter, start by clicking on Documents, and then click on Visual Filters. A new untitled visual filter window pops up. Let's name it by clicking on the title, and let's call it Fall 2015 Visual Filter NT for New Testament, and hit Enter. Mine has a number 2 because this is the second time I have made it. This visual filter will be our base for examining New Testament verbs. In the top right corner, you're going to see 3 options: Basic, Bible, and Morphology. The basic option is for a visual filter that would work on the English word level. For instance, if you wanted every time you saw the word the in the English, you would type in the down here and then decide how you wanted it to look, and then it would just, every time you saw the, it would be red or whatever you wanted to do with it. The Bible is a little more complex, but the one we want to be doing today is we want to be in the morph or morphology or morphological. We want morphological because the morphological filters utilize the tagging that Logos has done in the original language. So click on Morph, and now you'll see we have 4 drop-down menus here. The first drop-down menu, the Search All Morphological Text, if you click on it, you can see there's search fields. Don't worry about this. If you ever become a power user of Logos, you might find times to use this, but this isn't really something that is very useful unless you're doing very specific things. The next is all passages. So if you want, in Logos, you could make a filter that was just 1st and 2nd Corinthians. You could make a filter just for Nahum. You'll see we have all kinds of naming conventions in here, but for now we're going to do all passages. We're also going to do all resources. You could pick to only have it in certain Bibles or certain resources, but it makes sense to have it in all because you can actually turn it off in individual Bibles if you want the filter off. This filter we're making also doesn't just work in Bibles, it also works in letters from the church fathers or things of that nature, things that would have been in Greek or Hebrew. Logos and a lot of those has actually tagged them in the same way, so you can actually use these filters there, which might help you if you see a word used certain ways. You might wonder what the church fathers thought, and you might be able to find that. This last is the one we actually need to adjust when we're making a visual filter. So this is the morphology. And so in here we have Aramaic, Greek, Hebrew, Latin, and Syriac. The 2 that we need to know for what we're going to be doing in this workbook are the Logos Greek morphology and the Logos Hebrew morphology. So for today we're making a New Testament filter. The New Testament was written in Greek, so we're going to do the Logos Greek morphology. So we click on that. So now we're ready to make our filter. Please note, if you were ever making a filter for the Old Testament, you would need Logos Hebrew. Also note that even though we have selected all passages, because we're doing the Greek morphology, nothing in the Old Testament is in Greek, so nothing's tagged with the Logos Greek morphology in the Old Testament. So this filter is only for the New Testament. So now that we have that set up, we're going to go down here to where it says Find. We're going to click, and now we're going to make an @ sign. The @ sign, when you're in morphology, allows you to look at the different parts of speech, and you'll see adverb, conjunction, so on, and then verb down here. And these are the different parts of speech, and the @ sign will trigger those. You can also use this in different searches if you're on the morphology level, and you can use it in other places as well. So we're going to click on verb. Now, the verbs we want to look at, the finite, infinite, and the participle. So we're going to look under mood, which is where those are. And you can see there's participle and there's infinitive. Finite is actually these other four, the indicative, the imperative, the optative, and subjunctive. Those would all fall under the mood of finite. So for this first visual filter, for the first highlight we want to do, we're going to pick those four. And then we're going to click over on formatting. And here we're going to choose color box. So if you scroll down, you'll find color box. And when you click on it, it opens up the next window. Now we click on find again. Now we're going to add our infinitives. So we're going to do @ sign, verb, infinitive. And then for this one, you're going to do a double underline. And for the last, you would do the same thing for participle. And so I'm just going to quickly do that. And for participle, we want to choose green highlighter. Now you might be wondering why we chose these three. This is for Dr. Wong Lee Singh's class. Everyone does these, and then that way when you work on sentence diagramming and other things in the future, everyone has the same reference points. If you're not a part of that class and choose to do something else, you can do that. Just know that going forward on these videos, we'll be using this when we look in the New Testament. Now we're not quite done, even though we've got the three types of verbs we've talked about, because we also want to do conjunctions. And so I'll do the @ sign conjunction. We're going to just do all of them. So if I just click conjunction here and don't click anything inside, it affects everything under conjunction. And we're going to do on fire. So now this visual filter is active. So now it's time to look at it in our ESV Bible. To do this, we're going to open ESV. So in the command bar, type in open ESV. And we're actually, instead of just clicking enter, if you hover your mouse over, you'll see the icon comes up. And if you click and hold, you can actually make a shortcut here. And so I'm going to add a shortcut here. So when I click on that, it'll take it a second, but the ESV Bible will open. And now you'll see that filters there. You can see the finite verbs, there's infinitives, and where I'm at currently, here we go, here's some participles. Oh, we've also got a participle and a conjunction that are in the Greek, but in the English it's all seen as one word. So we'll talk about that later. But so now we have the ESV open, and you can see that our visual filter has transferred over. If on your screen the visual filter hasn't transferred over, it's because you might have turned visual filters off, and we're actually going to look at that right now. On the ESV Bible, there's these tools here, the parallel resource sets, the visual filters, the inline interlinear, the interlinear, and then there's inline searching. We're only going to look at visual filters and inline interlinear today. So if we click on visual filters, you can see resource, and then community notes, notes, and then down here we can see visual filters. You can see I probably have a lot of visual filters on, but the one I need on that we just made is Fall 2015 Visual Filters NT. And I'll do this one so we're the same. So now I turn that on, and I have it in my ESV Bible. Now, we're talking about the ESV mainly, but this also would be in most other Bibles in Logos. It's not in the Net Bible because that Bible handles things differently in Logos. But if we were to go into the NIV or the NASB, we could turn these visual filters on. For Greek and Hebrew students, it's also in the Greek or Hebrew if you make a visual filter that would work with it. So if you have your Greek text up, you can actually see the visual filter with the text. So the other tool here is the inline interlinear, and we're going to click on that. And right now I have open inline, surface, manuscript, and manuscript transliterated. What these refer to is down here we have the sending my very heart. That would be, here I'm going to click on this again, but so sending my very heart is the surface. And then the manuscript refers to the original language. So that's this Greek line here. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, even though I've taken Greek. And then we have the manuscript transliterated. And that is where they have translated it so you can sound it out phonetically. So tout, estin, ta, emma, sorry, Dr. Woodall. But so it's a way so you can pronounce the word at least a little bit. Then there's other options. Lemma, that gives you what the Greek word would be in the dictionary. There's also lemma transliterated, which sounds it out. There's also root, which gives you the root that it comes from. There's also morphology. That's the kind of how it's parsed out. You can also see Strong's numbers. You can also see the Louw-Nida. If you have the Louw-Nida resource, if you're in Greek or Hebrew, this one's nice to have open. But if you don't, you can just turn it off. So we'll look more at what the manuscript and the surface, how they interact in the next chapter. With visual filters, we are able to focus on the verbal priorities more easily, and hopefully come closer to the original tensions that the author wrote about. In the coming chapters, we will look at how to use the filters to help structure the thoughts of the original authors, as well as look at ways to expose our pre-understandings as we look at the text.